Alrighty, we're back with Outlier, Chapter 10 by Lisa Beeson. And let's get right into it. Well, maybe I should... Nah, we're good. We're good to just go on. Chapter 10. Ari woke up with a gasp, her heart pounding like a kick drum in her chest. The fear from her nightmare still had its icy hooks in her mind. She could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins. This dream had been different from her usual nightmares of being chased. In this nightmare, she was trapped in a pitch-dark room. This was terrifying for her since she was never really in total dark. Oh my goodness. And we're starting off strong. Okay, let's try this again. This was terrifying for her since she was never really ever in total darkness. She had always been able to see the radiant energy of all living things, even mold and fungus, which give off small amounts of light. There had been absolutely no light and no way out. She could hear the voices of her loved ones calling out for her, needing her help. She had frantically tried to find a way to get to them, bashing herself against invisible barriers. Then she had realized that she wasn't alone in the room. Something was in there with her. She could feel its ominous presence stalking her in the darkness. It was just about to attack when she woke up. She got out of bed and dashed over to the window, bathing in the bright light of the setting full moon and the ambient glow from the garden below. Norma jumped down from the bed and started rubbing against her legs. Ari picked the cat up and nuzzled her face into its silky soft fur, welcoming the calming, steady frequency of her purrs. The clock said it was 3:32 in the morning. Ari knew she wouldn't be able to fall back asleep, and since it was more than 2 hours before she had to be in the gym, she decided to spend the time in the library. Padding quietly throughout the house, she was aware of Kale's energy even before she noticed some light escaping under the doors into his study. She peeked inside through the wall and saw him sitting in one of the chairs by the fireplace, with its warm, inviting flames crackling over the charred logs. The temperature had gone down over the past couple nights, and Ari was regretting not putting on some socks before coming downstairs. She came closer to the doors and was just about to knock when she heard Kale say in a bored voice, "Can I help you?" Ari opened the doors and inched into the room, feeling guilty about snooping and wondering how he knew she was there. "Do you ever sleep?" she asked curiously. "Not enough," he answered, while moving some papers around on the coffee table in front of him. "I was just on the way to the library because I couldn't sleep either. Do you mind if I warm up by your fire for a bit?" she asked as pitifully as she could. She was still kind of worked up from the nightmare and could use the company, even if it was Kale. He looked up from his papers and took pity on her. "Go ahead," he said, motioning with his head towards the fire. Ari came in and stood in front of the ornate fireplace, warming her fingers and toes. When she turned to warm her back, she saw that one of the papers he was looking at was a photocopy of what looked like a Mayan stone tablet. "What is that?" she asked, coming in for a closer look. "It's just some copies of old historical records." "Oh, cool. Maybe I can help," she said, trying to make out some of the hieroglyphs on the poor quality copy. She went over and curled up in the chair across the coffee table from him. "That's all right," he said in a patronizing tone. "I have researchers in Oxford working on it." He gathered up the papers and put them into a large filing envelope. A twinge of disappointment and annoyance shot through her at his condescension. And that's when something clicked about Gemma's son. "Jared is one of your researchers, isn't he?" "He's one of them, yes," he said, sitting back in his chair. "You like to play the long game, don't you?" "There is nothing but the long game when you're smart." He said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. He had a way of upsetting her like no one else could. She couldn't understand why she cared so much about proving herself to him, when no matter what she did, he always seemed to see her as less than. Normally, stuff like that never really bothered her. People either liked her or they didn't. The ones who didn't weren't usually worth the effort to change their minds. But she tried to be decent to them anyway. But for some reason, Cale was different. And it was more than just that he was the only one on the planet similar to her. There was a very small, very irritating part of her that needed him to give a damn about her. And the fact that he didn't seem to care made it hurt more than she wanted to admit. So she lashed out. We're all just disposable pawns in your game, aren't we? I knew there had to be some self-serving reason behind this saintly act you put on for Gemma. You manipulated a single mother, making her and her son dependent on you. Then you groomed the son into becoming just another cog in the great get Cale what he wants machine. She could feel the righteous indignation rising up within her, but she let it go and hid behind her poker face. Cale looked at her through narrowed eyes. So that's what your estimation of me? An unfeeling puppet master. I'm right, aren't I? You only saved me because of what I could do for you. And there's only one reason to teach someone to be a sniper. You're taking a sweet, good-hearted boy and making him to a killer. I don't think I'll ever forgive you for that. You may not forgive me, but you will thank me when that boy's bullet saves your life one day, he said, pointing at her emphatically. You may not understand my reasons, but they all have a greater purpose, self-serving or not. Ari just looked back at him skeptically, and she was surprised to see that it actually seemed to bother him. Listen here, girlie. The reason I'm alive today is because of the devotion of my soldiers. I was what you would consider a commandant in the Iron Branch of the Anasaru, and the only way Monarch could get rid of me was to discredit my name and paint me a traitor to our people and the Anukanai. If he had killed me outright, there would have been a bloody Iron Rebellion. Do you want to know how I gained that kind of devotion? He asked, leaning forward in his chair. Ari knew that he only slipped into using his British curse words when he was upset, so she just sat back and hid behind her poker face as he looked intently into her eyes. I was able to see the potential in every one of my soldiers. I was able to see the thing that set them apart from the others, even if they couldn't see it themselves. I nurtured that potential, helped them to hone it, and made us all stronger as a whole, and they loved me for it. When the Carno ship left me here, I had nothing, so I learned to seize opportunities when they revealed themselves, selfish as that may be. Gemma was 16 when she got pregnant with Jarrett. The village and her family had basically turned their backs on her. When I bought Ardemir, she was raising a 3-year-old on her own, living off government assistance. But I saw the potential in her, so I took her in and gave her opportunities she never would have had otherwise. And now, she is the darling of the village, advocating the preservation of historical sites, and practically running the Covington Cross Historical Society. Do you think Jared hates me for leading him to his dream job and making sure his mother is taken care of for life? No, he loves me for it, and if I need him to do something for me, he will do it gladly. You begged me to take Cam along, so I did, and now I'm making him useful. I'm teaching him how to be something he was born to be. What, a killer? She asked defiantly, trying hard not to be lulled by his justifications. A protector, he said, looking straight into her eyes. Your protector. Crap. He did it. He lulled me. Arya felt guilty and annoyingly humbled. She had decided from the beginning that Cale was a selfish tool, and had stubbornly held on to that belief. Her dad had always taught them that when judging other people, they had to strip away their tainted opinions of them based on their feelings and judge them by their actions alone. Step back and look at the big picture. Oh, never mind. Let me go back. Step back and look at the big picture, her mom always said. Cale had clothed them, fed them, and put a roof over their heads. He offered protection that no one else could give them, and he had taught them how to protect themselves. He may not be the most likable and friendly person, but she had to admit that it would be unrealistic to think everyone would be, and get over it. Ari realized that she relied too heavily on her ability to read intentions. The first time she had to judge someone without that ability, she botched it. From now on, I need to learn how to judge people better without it. To distract herself from her failure, she tried to change the subject. Not to sound absolutely horrid, but why didn't this Manok guy just have you killed after he discredited you? My soldiers were still loyal to me. It didn't matter what lies he tried to spread. They knew that if I died, it would be by his hands. And that's why there was lithium on the Carno ship. It was meant for me so I could stay alive long enough that no one would expect foul play. But even before we left Anu, one of the Carnu thought he could get more money if he sold it instead. So I managed to take it back and showed him the error of his ways before I was evacuated off the ship. So, what are the Carno? Are they one of the higher races? No. They are a collection of the worst beings of Anu, the dredges of the higher races. They control the slave trade and anything on the black market. He thought for a second, like he was trying to think of how best to explain. I guess you could say they're like if the organized crime syndicates of every country came together to make a conglomerate of degenerates. The Anasaru have been trying to wipe them out for ages. Oh, okay. Well, they sound terrifying. But how would your soldiers even know if you were alive or not after you left? Because of this, he said, unbuttoning the top of his shirt to show a small mark on his chest over his heart. It was about the size of an eraser head, and it wasn't iridescent like the other runes, but a reddish-silver color that pulsed rhythmically in time with the beating of his heart. Every Anasaru soldier is injected with one when they're enlisted. It lets them keep track of casualties. My soldiers know I'm alive, and they know I'll find a way to come back. Who is this Manic guy anyway, and why does he hate you so much? Cale buttoned his shirt back up and sat back in his chair. He's an over-ambitious iron delegate, and he hated me because his wife was carrying my child. I felt like her jaw had just hit the floor. You got a guy's wife pregnant? We loved each other long before she was his wife. His eyes strayed over to a small oiled portrait on the wall that Ari hadn't noticed before. She focused in her vision for a better look. It was a portrait of one of the most beautiful women she had ever seen. The woman was posed looking over her shoulder in a 3/4 profile, and she was flawless. Her skin was practically luminescent with a golden luster, and her eyes were a deep glacial blue, very similar to her own. The woman's long honey blonde hair was partially held up by a simple yet beautiful headdress that somehow looked futuristic yet timeless. The rest of her hair cascaded over her shoulder and down her bare back in shimmery rivulets. The artist did an amazing job capturing a depth to her beauty. She almost seemed alive, with a sharp intelligence in her eyes, like she knew something no one else did. Is that her? Ari asked, focusing back on Cale. The painting doesn't do her justice. The artist did the best he could with only my descriptions to guide him. But there was so much more to her, he said in a far-off way, like he was picturing her right in front of him. Well, if you loved each other so much, how come she married someone else? Ari tried to ask as tactfully as she could. She didn't love Manok, and he certainly didn't love her. He just paraded her around like a trophy. She was just another possession for him to own and use to help him climb the political ladder. He cheated on her constantly and made sure she knew it. He demoralized her, made her feel worse than nothing. She was a shell of her former self. But when we were together, she came alive again, the way she was before. We had fallen in love before we even knew what love was. It was a pure, innocent love that only children can share. She was perfect, beautiful, kind, and clever. I could tell her anything. But her family was of the royal line, and I was only the son of the chief guard that protected them. So there was no future for us. We both knew it, but we hoped anyway. I reached maturity before her, and my father sent me off to Ezeret to become an Anasaru soldier. I swore to myself that I would do all I could to raise through the ranks and become worthy of her. Unfortunately, Monarch was already weaseling his way through the Athlon capital cities, finding favor with powerful people through lies, bribes, and extortion. He wanted Sanriel for her talents and beauty, and the advantages her family's royal status could give him. Her parents, who were charmed by his flattery and veneer of nobility, persistently pressured her into the match, since his connections would be advantageous for them as well. So as distance and time separated us further and further apart, she finally relented and agreed to marry him. I was heartbroken when my brother told me. Took a long time to get over how easily she let me go. But she never really did. Not fully, anyway. When Monarch became a delegate, he, Sanriel, and their daughter Calais moved to Ezeret. It was by chance that we saw each other. But when we did, it was like we were never parted. The love was still there. Why didn't she just divorce Monarch, or whatever the Ayan equivalent to that is? She wouldn't leave while her daughter was still a child. When Calais reached maturity, Sanriel tried to leave Monarch, but he refused to let her go and became very possessive. When she became pregnant, we planned for her to go back to Adalon so she could lay low until the baby was born. Then she would leave the baby to be raised by my brother until we could find a way to be a family. We had her sister request that Sanriel accompany her on an aid mission to the outer provinces of Talsia, where Karno renegades had been attacking the northern regions. Everything was going just as planned. Sanriel was able to hide the pregnancy under the heavy clothes required in the cold northern regions, and by staying out of sight, moving from village to village, helping with the aid missions. But then someone betrayed us. Monarch found out the truth, and on the way to the nether village, their convoy was attacked and reduced to cinders. He would rather have her die than bear the shame of his wife carrying another man's child. An intense fire burned behind his eyes as he thought about the death of the woman he loved and their unborn child. Ari's heart went out to him. She couldn't imagine the kind of pain he went through. No wonder he was so shut off and kept everyone at arm's length. That kind of loss leaves deep emotional scars. The emotion in his eyes turned cold as he continued on. Monarch framed me for the attack, claiming I was working with the renegades and accused me of trying to incite an Ayan coup against the Anokanai. Devastated by the news of her death, I didn't even fight back when I was stripped of my rank and everything I owned. Then Monarch had them ground me by defiling the Capsum rune on my back. Ari could tell by the pain in his eyes that he was reliving the whole ordeal in his mind. She didn't understand what he meant when he said they had grounded him, though. Maybe there was something lost in translation. But then she remembered that the rune his scar went through was the one that looked like wings. The realization made her jump to her feet. Whoa. Wait just a minute. Are you saying what I think you're saying? What do you think I'm saying? He said carefully. You had wings? Like full-fledged angel wings coming out of your back? She exclaimed incredulously. It's a rune an Ayan soldier receives after they have completed the final level of training and proven themselves worthy. It uses their body's natural photon energy and transforms it into electron-positron matter that manifests as wings. Yes. So you could fly? She asked in disbelief and awe. I could, he said bitterly. Ari had no trouble picturing him as an avenging angel, fiery sword in hand with golden skin and wings made of light. How come all Ayans don't get the Capsum rune? She asked as she sat back down. It is a rite of passage. a sacred honor bestowed only to those deemed worthy. It is a very powerful rune that takes a lot of internal energy. Some don't survive the application, he said seriously. But he had. Kale had been found worthy and earned that honor. And they took that away from you? She asked, appalled. They hacked through it with a dull blade, leaving my back to heal naturally with no healing rune. I was supposed to have had a fair trial, but Monarch was afraid his lies and deception would come to light, so he had me smuggled into the Carno ship while I was still weak, and made it look like I fled like a coward. Once I realized his connection to the Carno, I knew that it was him working with the renegades. So not only is he an enemy to all the Anukanai is supposed to stand for, but he is also a traitor to our people, allowing that scum to destroy villages and kidnap our people for who knows what nefarious reasons. If it's the last thing I do, I will make sure Sanriel and our child did not die in vain. Manak will be seen for the vile charlatan he is, and will be made accountable for his crimes. His hands savagely gripped the arm rests of his chair, as though he was imagining he was squeezing the life out of them. I'm so sorry, Kale, she said softly. For what? He asked, coming back to reality and releasing his grip. For everything you've lost, and for misjudging you. She took the silver chain holding the blue stone pendant from around her neck and held it out to him. Here, you need this more than I do. He looked at the stone hanging from her hand, then back to her eyes, his face becoming unreadable. No, it means something to you. You can keep it until it is needed. Ari looked at him in surprise. That was not what she expected at all, but she wasn't going to argue. The pendant reminded her of her parents and home. She'd keep it as long as she could. She shrugged, then put the chain back around her neck, gleaning comfort from the stone's familiar warmth. Kale ran a hand over his face and looked like he regretted divulging such personal information to her, and brought the wall back up between them. Are you warm enough yet? I have work I need to do. He stood up and walked back to his desk. Ari was disappointed at the cold dismissal after everything he had just shared with her, but she understood and shook it off. She got up to go to the library. It was progress. And that was the end of chapter 10 of Outlier by Lisa Beeson. Second book in the Transcendent series. I'm going to end this video here and then start filming chapter 11. Whoop, whoop. Alrighty. Yep, that's it. Peace.